أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يعد حقه المجتهدون، الذي لا يدركه بؤس الحمم ولا يناله غوث الفتن، الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا ناس موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود، فترى الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته. اللهم أفز صلة صلواتك وسلامة تسليماتك وعلى أول التعينات المفارقة من العماء رباني، وآخر التنزلات المضافة إلى نوع الإنساني، كان الله ولم يكن معه شيء ثاني، محصي لعوالم حضرات الخاص بوجوده، وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام المبين، الرسول النبي المكي الخرشي التحامي، صاحب لواء الحمد ومقام المحمود، أبي القاسم محمد الحميد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أخيه وابن عمه وسحره وخليفته من بعده وقائد الغر المحجلين، ياسوب الدين إمام المتقين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب، وعلى ابنته الطاهرة الحوراء العنسية الراضية المرضية الشفية يوم الجزاء فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها. وعلى ستي الرحمة وسيدي شباب أهل الجنة الحسن والحسين. اللهم صل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد وحسن بن علي وحجة القائم المنتظر المهدي. اللهم صل على محمد وآله. حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك. اللهم سهل منهجهم وعجل في فرجهم، وجعلنا من محبيهم ومواليهم وشيعتهم، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى قيام يوم الدين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent and most merciful. I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has granted us this tawfiq of commemorating the zikr of Sayyid al-Shuhada, the zikr of Imam Hussein, which had elevated itself into the heavens and completely merged with the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. If the Prophet of Allah had said that looking at the face of Amirul Mu'mineen as ibadah, Imam Hussein has lived up to those expectations by the sacrifice that he has made. And inshallah, I was very impressed by some of the speakers, young speakers that are participating, and the direction in which they are thinking, because eventually the idea is, as you also have seen in the video that was shown, that when Islam and Muslims talk about contemplating on death, it is not to depress yourself, it is not to make yourself miserable, but to make your life purposeful. So you have a sense of purpose and a sense of direction. And to validate that point, although we don't need that validation, but as a secondary source to validate that point, we showed how somebody who was considered to be the most successful, at least one of the most successful people in the information age, his factor of motivation, thing that it had shaken him or motivated him to come every day to work and innovate and create and turn around the industry, was death itself. So when we are talking about death, we are talking about life. And like he said, it's the life's greatest invention. Amirul Mu'mineen says that it is the only thing that you can be sure of in life is death. And what we are trying to do is, by ensuring that we understand how little we have and how long this journey is going to be, we prepare ourselves for that journey. And we do not waste our time in merely entertaining ourselves and satiating our desires or satisfying our desires, which will never be satisfied. And the reason for the riwayah that I quoted yesterday from Imam Hussein was to give us perspective, give us a sense of direction. Are we truly the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or we are the slaves of this dunya? But also I wanted to share with you that one thing Imam Hussein had mentioned in his wasiyah to Muhammad Hanafiya was that I am embarking on this journey neither for power nor for pleasure. I want to reform the ummah of my Rasulullah, and I want to awaken the ummah of my grandfather, and I want to walk on the seerah of my grandfather and my father. And we find what Imam Hussein had said about Inna nas abidud dunya, indeed people are the slaves of the world, is a statement that I'm going to share with you, which Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam has also said. And it's a quite interesting riwayah I thought of sharing with you all. And the riwayah is from Biharul Anwar, and it's in Majalis lil Mufid, and it's narrated there from Hasan Basri, who says that Amirul Mu'mineen arrived in Basra and was passing by me while I was performing wudu, to prepare myself for salat. That's when this whole riwayah begins. And he starts mentioning that marra bi wa ana atawadda'u faqala ya ghulam ahsin wudu'aka yuhsinu Allah ilayk. And when the Imam sees a young man performing wuzu, the Imam encourages him. And he says, "Oh young man, beautify your wuzu. Make sure you do your wuzu with all the ingredients so that it becomes the best wuzu that you can do." And what would happen as a result of that? Allah is going to beautify you through it. We are not talking about salat yet, we are talking about wuzu. The sense of preparedness, the sense of preparation. If you are really going to meet your Creator and you're performing wuzu, the Imam is encouraging this young person that beautify your wuzu such that Allah is going to beautify your soul. So wuzu is a means of beautification of our soul. And then the Imam encourages him with more words, and then the Imam is continuing his path, he's moving forward. But this person, the moment he hears something from Imam, such encouraging words, he does not shy away from the Imam. He starts approaching the Imam. He's trying to get closer to the Imam, to get more, to learn more from the Imam. So فَنَظَرَ إِلَى فَقَالْ يَا غُلَامْ أَلَكَ إِلَيَّ حَاجَةٌ. So when I started following, the Imam turned around and he said, "Oh young man, is there something you want from me?" قُلْتُ نَعَمْ. I said, "Yes, I want something from you, O Imam." So the Imam says, "What is it? Tell me." So now this young man has gathered enough courage to ask from the Imam. He says, "Allimni kalaman." Teach me some words of wisdom, O Imam. I want to learn from you. Now that you have asked, now that you have encouraged me upon the wuzu that I was performing, I am expecting to learn few words. See, every word, my dear brothers and sisters, if I want, I could just take this riwayah and do the exposition of just this riwayah for next 10 days. But there is so much material that we need to cover, so I'm going very quickly. But if you ponder upon every word, there is so much depth. You look at this young man who is so motivated, and you see the interaction of the Imam, how our elders and how our leaders should interact with younger people, how we should motivate them. The person is performing wuzu and we find the Imam coming and encouraging him. And then this person, this young man, is so excited and so motivated that he starts following the Imam until the Imam realizes that he's being followed, and he asks, "Is there anything I can do for you?" He says, "Yes, I want you to teach me some words." And then he says, "Yanfa'uni Allah bihi," so that Allah would benefit me from what you are going to teach me. See the tawakkul, see the response of a young person. He is standing in front of the Imam and addressing to the Imam, and he's saying, "Teach me some words so I can," he could have said, I could just learn from it. But he says, "No, once you teach me, O Imam, I am hoping that Allah is going to benefit me from your words." So in that end, we need to know who's going to benefit us. It is Allah who's going to benefit us. It's not my intellect. It's not my knowledge. It's not even he is giving credit to the Imam. He is giving credit directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we are kind, like وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, be kind to your parents, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, we are not just being kind to our parents, we are being kind because Allah has ordered us and Allah is ensuring us that He is going to benefit us through the action that we are going to perform. That's what you see here. Here this young man says, "Oh Imam, I want to benefit. Please teach me some words of wisdom so that Allah benefits me through your words." فَقَالَ, then the Imam says, "Ya ghulam, man sadaqa Allah naja." See how, if we really want to reduce everything down, then we should learn and we should see how Amirul Mu'mineen has this ability to say, an ocean of knowledge in a sentence. Here the Imam says, "Ya ghulam, man sadaqa," whoever is truthful with Allah, sadaqa Allah, naja, is successful. So if you are truthful with your Creator, your success is guaranteed. وَمَنْ أَشْفَقَ عَلَى دِينِهِ سَلِمَ مِنَ الرِّضَى. Whoever limits himself and fears himself, and whoever limits himself to his religion will remain intact from destruction. So if we confine ourselves to the boundaries of our religion, the Imam is saying, he will save himself from destruction. He will not be destroyed. If one is truthful with the relationship that he has with his Creator, he is successful. One who is following the path of Allah by being in the boundaries of his religion, is going to be saved from destruction. And then the Imam says, وَمَنْ زَهِدَ فِي الدُّنْيَا خَرَّتْ عَيْنُهُ بِمَا يَرَى مِنْ ثَوَابِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. Whoever practices zuhud, abstention, parhezgari, in this world, his eyes would be dazzled by what Allah would show him as a reward in the hereafter. See the benefits of zuhud, the benefits of austerity, the benefits of not exceeding our limits, the benefits of not doing israf and wastefulness. The Imam is telling us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to show us the reward. Our eyes would be dazzled by what Allah is going to show us. We are going to be in awe of the reward that is awaiting us by being zahid, by living within our means, by ensuring that we don't do wastefulness. As the citizens of this world, today you find all these intellectuals who are getting, Nobel Prize. I think Al Gore got a Nobel Prize for the documentary which he had done on environment and stuff like that. Saving the environment, being sensitive to the environment, recycling. We talk about all those ideas out here, and as if we do it, that we have waited so many hundreds and hundreds of years for mankind to progress and come to a conclusion that we should not be wasteful. And yet we find the richness of Islam and the Imam and the true Islam that's being shown by the true successors of the Holy Prophet 1400 years ago. And if we ignore this and we think that the society has progressed very much, let me tell you, if my memory serves me right, I think it is 3% of the world's population which creates about 45% of garbage. And that's the Western world. That's how much we waste. 3% people creating all the garbage in the world. 45% of the garbage in the world. So that's a very high percent. Even if this is not the percentage, then the percentage is too high. And see, the Imam is teaching this young man how to lead a life of zuhud and how Allah is going to honor him and grant him also in the hereafter. Okay. Now once the Imam says this, then he asks him, Ala aziduka ya ghulam, do you want me to say more, O young man? Is this enough? Or you want me to say more to you? Generally, first of all, our young people are shy away from taking advice from elders. And even if they take advice, if they are forced to take advice, then they go with their friends and they say, I was just meeting my uncle, somebody, and he started lecturing me on life. So merely even caring about what was being said, we just walk away like that. And look at this young man who's living in the time of Amirul Mu'mineen, who took the opportunity the moment he saw that Imam has given him some attention while he was doing wuzu. He's not letting the Imam go. He just caught hold of him and he said, teach me something, so Allah would benefit me from it. And then the Imam starts teaching, and when the Imam finds the zarfiyah, the Imam finds the potential in that person. The Imam does not ask people who do not have that potential, do not care about things. Here the Imam saying, Ala aziduka ya ghulam, oh young man, should I add more? Should I say more? Is showing that the follower of the Imam also possess that potential. So if we are not guided, then we should look into ourselves, contemplate into our own selves. Are we clearing that way? Are we ensuring that we create that potential within ourselves? If your hard drives are full, what are you supposed to do? You know, every time I remember there was a time when I was here and 200 megabytes hard drive was like a pride, because 40 megabyte and 20 megabyte hard drives were like big thing, and if you have a 200 megabyte hard drive, you could just brag about it in your school and with your friend. I have a 200 megabyte hard drive. And now you have a 200 gigabyte hard drive and people still complaining, and it's all full. Okay? So the hard drive is always going to be full with information. The information is all going to come. What is the best way to ensure that you maintain your systems is by keeping the file manager clean, by managing your folders correctly and managing information and backing up that data which is more important to you. Otherwise, if you start, backing up the kind of data we have right now, then we will run out of hard drive after hard drive. So information that we have, if we are willing to empty some portion for Allah and for Islam, for learning about Islam, for learning about hereafter, then only then we will be able to take that place and hold on to that information. But if all our hard drives are filled with the desires of this world, there is no room for anything more to be added. And if it is just there in the RAM, as all of you know, when the computer reboots, everything evaporates. It has to be written on the soul and on your heart. And for it to do that, you need to clear off garbage. You have to open up that recycling bin and start throwing files which are garbage. They are not needed. Okay? Alright, so here the Imam finds potential in this person, and therefore he says, Ala aziduka ya ghulam, should I add more, O ghulam, O young man? Khultu, then this young man who is quoting the riwayah says, yes, bala ya amir al-mu'mineen. Please, yes, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, I would like you to add more. I want to learn more from you. And then the Imam says, Man kunna fihe salasu khisalin salamat lahu ad-dunya wal-akhirah. Whoever possesses these three qualities, this world, his dunya and his akhirah and his hereafter, both are secured. You will never go wrong. If you possess these three qualities, you will never ever go wrong, neither in this world nor in the hereafter. What are those qualities? The Imam says, Man amara bil ma'ruf wa'tamara bihi. Whoever invite others towards good deeds, Amr bil Ma'ruf, in Furu'edin, it's part of our Furu'edin, right? Amr bil Ma'ruf. The Imam is saying, whoever invite other people towards good actions and himself also acts upon good actions. Meaning, preach what you practice. Not only preaching is going to suffice. If I am saying something, if an elder brother is saying to his younger brother to go and pray for Salat, and if he's going to watch football, do you think he's going to go? It's not going to work. It has to be practiced. That's what the Imam is saying. That whoever invites others towards good deeds and also practices it. This is one quality. The second quality, وَالنَّهَا عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَانْتَهَا عَنْهُ. And whoever asks others to refrain from bad actions, and he himself also refrains from it. If we have this quality that neither we do bad deeds nor we let our loved ones to do bad deeds, this quality is going to save you and secure you in this world and also in the hereafter. Both of them would be secure. And then finally the Imam says, وَحَافَظَ عَلَى حُدُودِ اللَّهِ. And whoever protects himself and remains within the boundaries that Allah has prescribed. If we are living within the boundaries in which Allah has prescribed, then we are neither going to go wrong in this world, nor we are going to go wrong in the hereafter. What happens if you, while watching Niagara Falls, if you go driving over there, or especially for people who are in Canada and who do not possess a visa to come to United States, and they start walking over that bridge, what happens? You will be stopped and asked for the documents, and if you don't have documents, you will be returned or you will be thrown into jail if you insist. There are boundaries. We have boundaries for everything that we do. We all, those of us who are adults, they know if they go to a workplace, if they go to college and universities, they know what their boundaries are. The code of dress that they wear, they know their boundaries. There is a certain type of clothing you're supposed to wear at work. You cannot wear the kind of clothes you wear at mall, at a workplace. There are certain types of topics you can talk about. When you are at workplace, you can of course talk about how the weather is good or weather is bad. But if you start engaging yourself into political discussions and this and that, you won't be long in that workplace. You will be sent off. We know all our boundaries. Everywhere we know our boundaries. And if we do not refrain from the boundaries, or if we do not cross those boundaries that Allah has prescribed for us to be true Muslims, the Imam is saying, if you withhold yourself within those boundaries, then surely you are going to be securing your this life and also your hereafter. If you surpass those boundaries, then obviously you are going to destroy your worldly life as well as your hereafter. It does not serve in the end. Crossing the boundaries of this world also does not serve you. Alright, so we see here what is the prescription for success. What are we supposed to be doing so that we do not become the slaves of this dunya? If we are on the right path and if we invite others towards the right path, and if we are refraining from bad actions, and if we invite others towards to others also to refrain from bad actions, and if we are limiting ourselves to the boundaries of Islam, then we are going to succeed. You think this was enough? No, the Imam continues in the riwayah and says, Ya ghulam, ayassiruka an talqa Allah yawm al-qiyamah wa huwa anka razin. Should I tell you something? Should I give you the good news that you should be pleased when you meet Allah? Should I tell you about something that would please you when you meet Allah? Meaning that you confront death. Should I tell you what you should be doing so that when you die, you will be pleased that you have done this? And this person says, yes, O Amirul Mu'mineen, please tell me what that is. Here the Imam says, Kun fi dunya zahidan wa fil akhirati raghiban. Be in this world a person who abstains from it and be passionately attracted to the akhirah, to the hereafter. If you do this, you will meet your Lord with a bright face. Okay? And then the Imam says, وَعَلَيْكَ بِالصِّدْقِ فِي جَمِيعِ أُمُورِكَ. Truthfulness in all your affairs. Be aware that truthfulness is required in all your affairs. you cannot be selective. We do not believe in relative truth. We believe in absolute truth. You know what is relative and absolute? Some of my young brothers who are here, I can give them an example. If you are traveling in a train, the person who is inside the train would seem moving to the person who is outside of the train. Okay? Whereas the person who is inside of the train, he cannot feel the speed with which he is moving. So he is relatively static, he is not moving, but in relation to the person who is outside of the train, he is moving. So truthfulness, sidq, is not like that. How does it affect us? It affects in such a way that when we are dealing with a certain set of people, we are being truthful, we are being honest, we are being very pleasing, we are being very hospitable. But when we are treating with another set of people, then we are being biased, we are being rude, and we see all this going around us all the time. If our allies do something, what do we call that? We call it that, please recite aloud salawat. We call it collateral damage. You know what collateral damage means? If we have to take down somebody, one person, and then we go off and take down 50 people, innocent people, we say it was collateral damage. We don't talk about human life. We just say that. But if somebody who is against us, even if he looks at us, we suddenly turn around and say, oh, this is righteousness and this is justice and peace, and we are talking about all those things. This is relative truth. This is not absolute truth. Islam talks about absolute truth. In your dealings, you should be truthful with everyone. And this is what the Imam is saying. And if you do that, then you will be meeting your Creator with a bright face and a smile. Please recite aloud salawat. And then the Imam continues and says, "Alayka bis-sidq fi jami' umurika fa inna Allah ta'abbadaka wa jami'a khalqih bis-sidq." Allah expects your servitude and of all His creation through truthfulness. Servitude without truthfulness is deceit and deception. And Allah is expecting us to be truthful if we are truly the slaves of Allah and the servants of Allah, not the slaves of this world, nor we are the servants of this world. Then the Imam starts walking. Summa masha hatta dakhala as-suq al-Basra. Then the Imam starts walking towards the market of Basra. فَنَظَرَ إِلَى النَّاسِ. And he starts looking at people in the market. يَبِيعُونَ وَيَشْتَرُونَ. What does he see? He sees people buying and selling things. فَبَكَى بُكَاءً شَدِيدًا. The Imam started crying. Looking at the people going about doing their business, their day-to-day affairs, the Imam started crying. ثُمَّ قال. And then the Imam says, Ya abidu dunya, O slaves of this world, wa ummala ahluha. Not only the slaves of the world, but those who work for them, who are the slaves of this world. إِذَا كُنْتُمْ بِالنَّهَارِ تَحْلِفُونَ. When it is the day, you are swearing each other, doing business and getting transactions across. وَبِاللَّيْلِ فِي فِرَاشِكُمْ تَنَامُونَ. While you are when the night arrives, you are either relaxing or sleeping. وَفِي خِلَالِ ذَلِكَ عَنِ الْآخِرَةِ تَغْفُلُونَ. And in the time between it, you are completely heedless and ignorant about your akhirah, about your hereafter. فَمَتَى تُجَهِّزُونَ الزَّادِ وَتُفَكِّرُونَ فِي الْمَعَادِ. When are you going to equip yourselves for the journey that you are going to take? When are you going to contemplate and think and ponder about the day of judgment? Did you see, my dear brothers and sisters, the statement of Amirul Mu'mineen and the statement of Imam Hussein? When Imam Hussein said that I am going to awaken and reform the ummah of my grandfather and walk on the seerah of my grandfather and my father, you see that Amirul Mu'mineen had said exactly the similar words. And he's talking about Abidud Dunya. And here you also see the pain of the Imam, how he is looking for people who are going about their business. When we talk about our Imam-e-Zamana, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, that he cries when he sees our amal during the nights of Shab-e Jum'ah. This is what we are talking about. These are the souls that were sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring humanity towards Allah. And when they find people heedless of Allah, heedless of akhirah, heedless of what is going to come after them, and they are completely absorbed into the life of this world, they cry on those people, not upon themselves, on those people, where they are going and where they are leading their lives. So here, then Amirul Mu'mineen, when he says that, another person who's there starts justifying. What are you talking about, O Imam? I mean, aren't we supposed to do our business? Aren't we supposed to earn our living? Aren't we supposed to earn our livelihood? This is the question that comes to all of our minds. And there was a person right next to him who says exactly the same thing. إِنَّهُ لَا بُدَّ لَنَا مِنَ الْمَعَاشِ فَكَيْفَ نَسْنَعُ. How are we going to live, O Amirul Mu'mineen, if we do not go about earning our livelihood? Now what the Imam says? The Imam says, فَقَالَ عَمِرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِنَّ طَلَبَ الْمَعَاشِ مِنْ حَلِّهِ لَا يَشْغَلُ عَنْ عَمَلِ الْآخِرَةِ. Seeking your livelihood through halal means will not make you heedless and ignorant from your hereafter. It's not going to make you that. Then the Imam says, فَإِنْ خُلْتَ لَا بُدَّ لَنَا مِنَ الْإِحْتِكَارِ. But if you are saying that it is necessary for us to hoard, ihtikar means to hoard, to collect. You know, when there's an event of a famine, if you find somebody hoarding food stock, especially during famine, I mean, the sentence could be as severe as death penalty, because there are people who are dying out of food, and what you do, you take food and then you hoard it and then you sell for more. That's what the Imam is saying. If you're talking about earning your livelihood will not stop you from contemplating about your hereafter and working towards your hereafter. But if you're talking about hoarding and collecting more than is needed for you, then the Imam says, لَمْ تَكُنْ مَعْذُورًا فَوَلَّى الرَّجُلُ بَاكِيًا. Then you are not going to be excused. This is not an excuse that is going to be acceptable. And a lot of us here, my dear brothers and sisters, are engaged in that mentality of hoarding. If we have one thing, even before that thing can actually go out of style, we need something else, and we have this desire to keep getting more and more and more. And Imam is saying that's not going to be enough for you. This person who hears, it affects so immensely upon the heart of this person that he starts crying and starts walking away from the Imam. فَقَالَ لَهُ أَمِيرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. The Imam says to this person, أَخْبِلْ عَلَيَّ أَزِدْكَ بَيَانًا. Come towards me. Where are you going? Where are you leaving? Come towards me. I would add more what I have to say to you. فَعَادَ الرَّجُلُ. So the person returns. He comes back. إِلَيْهِ فَقَالَ لَهُ اِعْلَمْ يَا عَبْدَ اللَّهِ. No, O servant of Allah, not the servant of dunya. This itself is showing that this person has been singled out by Amirul Mu'mineen, that he is not Abidul Dunya. He is the servant of Allah. Why? When haqq and truthfulness was told to him, it immediately affected upon his soul. That's why he was crying. And he wanted to straighten his affairs and he was leaving. But the Imam saw potential in this person, and so the Imam calls him back and he says, Oh Abdullah, come back. No, i'lam anna kulla amilin fi dunya lil akhirati la budda an yuwaffiya ajra amalihi fil akhirah. Beware and know, O slave of Allah, indeed, whoever works in this world for the hereafter, it is necessary for him to see his reward for his actions in hereafter. He is going to see his reward in the hereafter. But whoever does the opposite, وَكُلَّ عَامِلٍ الدُّنْيَا لِلدُّنْيَا, whoever works in this world for this world. What are we supposed to do? We have to work in this world for the hereafter. And the second category the Imam is saying is whoever works in this world for this world. For persons like that, أُمَالَتُهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ نَارَ جَهَنَّمْ. The reward, the compensation for their actions in the hereafter will be the fire of hell. Summa tala, and then the Imam recites the verse of Holy Quran. فَأَمَّا مَنْ تَغَى وَعَاثَرَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا فَإِنَّ الْجَحِيمَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. As for him who was rebellious and preferred the life of this world, his refuge will indeed be hell. So my dear brothers and sisters, these are the teachings of our Imams. How can we, when we are talking about problem, we are also talking about solutions. When we are saying how we should refrain ourselves not from being the slaves of this dunya, we are also talking about how should we go about becoming the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not the slaves of this dunya. And then there are many other narrations that I think I need to skip, except for this one. I will quote it. It's from Imam Kazim alayhi salam. Imam Kazim says, "Ad-dunya falaysa li'anfusikum samanun illa al-jannah." The world is not the price of your soul, but paradise. If you are selling yourself, don't sell yourself for cheap. The price of your soul should be Jannah, paradise. فَلَا تَبِيعُهَا بِغَيْرِهَا. Do not sell yourself for cheap. فَإِنَّهُ مَنْ رَزَيَ مِنَ اللَّهِ بِالدُّنْيَا فَقَدْ رَزَيَ بِالْخَسِيسِ. Whoever is satisfied and fulfilled by what Allah gives him in the life of this world, then he has truly sold himself for a very low price. What are we supposed to do? We are supposed to seek more than what Allah is going to give us in this dunya. In another saying, Amirul Mu'mineen says, all that hardship that comes, but after which there is Jannah, then those hardships are not hardships, they are blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All that comfort that comes, but after which there is going to be the hardship in the akhirah, that is not a blessing, my dear brothers and sisters. So we need to ensure that we are not the slaves of this dunya. Now let me get back to the historical context. how this was being played. If you recall, when Hazrat Zahra Salamullahi alayha goes to the court of the Khalifa to claim what was hers, which was the orchard of Fidak. And she makes her claim and it is not given to her. Then she looks around at the companions of the Holy Prophet and then she addresses them and she says, what has happened to you? Aren't you the same people who would take their life in their own hands for the victory of Islam? What has happened to you that you are not talking about haqq, you're not talking about righteousness, you're not talking about truth? And then Hazrat Zahra herself says, I know what has happened to you. This dunya has overpowered you. You have completely sold yourself for the reward that you're going to get and the reward that you're going to reap in this dunya. And my dear brothers and sisters, it all started from there. Karbala did not happen in a day. It took a long time to expose the nifaq and the hypocrisy of the enemies of Islam who had infiltrated the ranks of Muslims when they failed in their mission of destroying Islam. They infiltrated Islam by calling themselves Muslim, but their agenda was to destroy Islam. Their agenda was to distort Islam. Their agenda was to reap out of the victories that Islam is going to make and Islam, the way the Islam was spreading. And it all started from there. And that's why we see those who were in the forefront were Bani Umayyah, Abu Sufyan. If you look at the Iman of Abu Sufyan, the way he accepted Islam, that itself shows. And every opportunity that Abu Sufyan had got to see when Islam was in question, we find Abu Sufyan always yearning to ensure that Islam is defeated. And that's where it started. And then we find it started building up during the time of the third Khalifa, when the Sham, when the Shamat, Syria and all those cities that were related to it, they became very powerful in the hands of Bani Umayyah. And their only goal and their only purpose was not to ensure Islam spreads and the word of truth and haqq is spread and given as a gift to humanity, but it was to rule human beings under the garb of Islam, to oppress people in the name of righteousness, deceive people and oppress people. And it started, and whoever came in their way, they started eliminating all those who came in their way. And who else could come except for Bani Hashim? Who else could come except for the household of the Holy Prophet? Who else could come but the progeny of Zahra? And that's why we find that the confrontation started from there. The Prophet of Allah passed away, and immediately after his death, we find Muslims are trying to marginalize Ahlul Bayt. They were trying to corner Ahlul Bayt. Economic sanctions. If you recall, the kuffar of Quraysh had inflicted economic sanctions upon Muslims when the Prophet of Allah had to live in Shayb Abi Talib, when the Prophet of Allah and the Ummah and the Muslims who were converted at that time in Mecca were suffering. And here also the agenda was to ensure that Ahlul Bayt loses their means so that they are not strong enough, and that way we will be able to marginalize them, and so that they would not be able to say the word of truth and the word of haqq. And when it came into their way, they did not go short in it, but they started killing. And that's why we find Amirul Mu'mineen was martyred. The reason Amirul Mu'mineen was not willing to become the third Khalifa was that he did not accept anything below what was granted, what was the seerah of the Holy Prophet. He said, I'm going to only rule with Quran and the seerah of Rasulullah. Nothing more than that. When he was being asked to follow upon the footsteps of others other than the Holy Prophet. And the Amirul Mu'mineen declined. And then we find Imam Hassan standing up for the same cause. And he was treated the way he was treated because the path of others was much more convenient. The truth was relative, it was not absolute. Baitul Mal was given on the basis of tribes. There was discrimination going on. There was hoarding going on in the name of Islam. And Amirul Mu'mineen was not willing to follow that path. And Imam Hassan lost the support. One of the main reasons was people who were called Shias, people who were around him, people who were considered to be his faithful and loyalist, they were bought by Muawiyah. The person who was leading the confrontation, Ubaidullah ibn Abbas, was bought by Muawiyah and he gave in. So the commander-in-chief of the army sold himself to the opposing party. How can there be a war? Why am I bringing up this, my dear brothers and sisters? If you recall the statement of Imam Hussein, when there is a time for test, people are the slaves of this world. But when there is a time for test, we will only find few who are going to withstand the hardships and still stick to the right path. And the Imam Hassan was also martyred. And his martyrdom was also made ambiguous because the means that were applied by Bani Umayyah were such. Amirul Mu'mineen was martyred. Although he was martyred in the hands of Khawarij, the source was Bani Umayyah. And now this is how they were planning to martyr Imam Hussein. And the Imam Hussein had to leave because of that. The treaty that Muawiyah had signed with Imam Hassan, although he did not keep the part of bargain on his side, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein withstood all the hardships that they had to go through, but they followed that treaty. And the beginning of Karbala started when the letter from Sham came to Walid. Walid is the governor of Medina, and Walid receives a letter from Sham that Muawiyah has gone where he deserves to go. And now is the time that Yazid needs to be declared as a Khalifa. Although the treaty that Muawiyah had signed, he had said that he is not going to name or enforce a name of his successor. The Khilafah would be left to the Ummah to decide. And he went contrary to that, and now there are preparations for Yazid to become the Khalifa. And how was it possible? Especially because the nifaq of Muawiyah was hidden, but the open transgression of Yazid was not hidden from anybody. The whole Ummah knew how he was a wine drinker, how he was a corrupt person. And the dream or the passion of Yazid was to ensure if he could get Imam Hussein to endorse on his Khilafah, then obviously there will not be any mutiny, there will not be any person coming in between, because he will have a person to say that the grandson of the Holy Prophet is saying that I'm a Khalifa. How can you stop me from being a Khalifa? So this was a point at which Imam Hussein could not have withstood, and at the same time Imam Hussein wanted to expose Bani Umayyah. Had Imam Hussein lived in Medina, his fate would have been the same as the fate of Imam Ali and Imam Hassan. And then it would have all become ambiguous, saying some Khariji, some Khawarij killed Imam Ali, some woman who was the wife of Imam Hassan killed Imam Hassan. And then they started manufacturing ahadith which were false and distortions upon the character of Imam Hassan. And when, my dear brothers and sisters, when Imam Hassan made this treaty, all those people who claimed themselves to be the Shias, they themselves had disagreed with Imam Hassan. One thing we need to know, my dear brothers and sisters, and we need to know this intensely and immensely, is the wilaya, the guardianship of Ahlul Bayt is unquestionable. Because they can see what is being veiled from us. What we cannot see, they can foresee. And they are making those decisions under the guidance that they could see. And if we cannot foresee that, and if we go off and say, no, this treaty was wrong, then we have deceived ourselves. Now Walid is informed that Muawiyah is dead, and Walid sends a messenger to Imam Hussein to be called to seek the bay'ah. And Marwan is alongside of Walid, who is a wicked and a cunning munafiq that Islam has seen, who says to Walid, suggests to Walid, oh Walid, make sure you do not send any official notification to Imam Hussein. He might figure it out and then move away from us, and we would not be able to get hold of him. Because the order from Sham is either to get the bay'ah from Imam Hussein or to kill him immediately. With this agenda in mind, a messenger, a young boy, is sent towards Imam Hussein while the Imam is in Masjid Nabawi, teaching people and inviting people towards taqwa. And what does, when the person comes, this young person comes and says, Walid is calling you Imam, immediately Imam knows what is going behind the scenes. And that's why Imam says, certainly Muawiyah is dead, and I believe that Yazid is seeking bay'ah. And Abdullah ibn Zubair is also along his side, who is also being called, and he is very frantic, thinking he's going to be killed, and he says, I'm not going to confront this, I'm going to get away from here as quickly as I can. But the Imam says, no, I'm going to go and talk. But obviously, my dear brothers and sisters, the Imam is going to confront and talk. But Ahlul Bayt knew that this was the last sign and the star and the flower from Panjatan, from Ahlul Bayt that was amongst them. And if we lose him, then we would not have anyone. And therefore we find Hazrat Zainab Salamullah alayha and other sister of Imam Hussein, Hazrat Kulsum and others, they all say, oh Imam, please do not go alone. We want Bani Hashim to accompany you so that the enemies of Islam would not be able to inflict harm upon you. And Bani Hashim accompany Imam Hussein. But Imam says that you have to stay outside because Walid has only called me, and I'm going to go and confront Walid. But if my voice is raised, then you are free to enter, because that's when the harm could come to me. He goes inside and finds Walid talking to him with respect, but Marwan was very, very anxious and eager to get the bay'ah. When Walid says that we need the bay'ah, Imam says, why have you called me in the night time? Let us decide the fate of the Ummah tomorrow in public. And Marwan immediately says, no, he's not going to do anything tomorrow. He's going to declare his own khilafah. Let us finish the job right here. Upon which Imam Hussein, stone raises up and Bani Hashim enters and takes Imam Hussein with security from the house of Walid. But now the house of Rasulullah, the city of Rasulullah, was no more left to be lived by Ahlul Bayt. And the Prophet of Allah, whose only grandson was there serving the shrine of the Holy Prophet, was threatened by death and by destruction. But the bigger challenge was to undermine Islam itself. And therefore Imam Hussein goes to the shrine of his grandfather, to the grave of his grandfather, and starts crying on the grave of his grandfather, and starts saying, "Oh my grandfather, what am I supposed to do? What are the challenges that you are seeing? The Ummah has brought me to such a situation that I will not be anymore here as a mujawir, as a mutawalli, as the caretaker of your shrine, O Rasulullah." And then Imam Hussein closes his eyes. And once the Imam closes his eyes, Rasulullah comes into the dream of Imam Hussein. And he says, "O Hussein, you have to take this challenge. And you have to ensure that falsehood is permanently separated from truth. Oh Hussein, you have to go to Karbala. Oh Hussein, take your family also along with you, because otherwise the enemies of Islam would say that there were two armies that were fighting. But when Hussein would go with his family, with his children, nobody would be pointing fingers at Imam Hussein that he was thirsty for power. He wanted power. That's why he had to face the army of Yazid." Imam Hussein wakes up from the dream. Rasulullah says, "Oh my grandson, oh my dear grandson, I'm going to come along with you." Imam Hussein goes to his family and collects everyone and informs everyone that I am going to leave the shrine of Rasulullah. When Bani Hashim are informed that Imam Hussein is leaving, Imam Hussein is going to depart from the holy city of Medina, all the Bani Hashim, they come and they are mustering towards the house of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein prepares for the journey to travel, and all the preparations are being taken place. Muhammad Hanafiya comes and says,